Rethinking Vietnam, next on International Focus.
The Institute of World Affairs at UWM and Milwaukee Public Television present International Focus, a global magazine linking Wisconsin and the world.
Welcome to International Focus. I'm Doug Savage, Assistant Director of the Institute of World Affairs at UWM. For many Americans, perceptions of Vietnam continue to be colored by images of conflict. Scenes of the chaotic U.S. departure from Saigon in 1975 remain frozen in time. For the people of Vietnam as well, memories of war remain, but a new generation is looking confidently toward a new dynamic future. After a brief experiment with collectivism, the Hanoi government changed course and a new group of entrepreneurs emerged to supercharge the nation's economy. With an average growth of 7.5% for the past decade, Vietnam is, in the words of one World Bank official, the poster child for market-oriented reforms. To explain what this transformation from war zone to economic success story means for Asia and beyond, we're pleased to be joined by Vietnam's ambassador to the U.S. Cong Phung was appointed ambassador of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam to the United States in October 2007. Prior to this appointment, Ambassador Lê served as First Deputy Foreign Minister, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs' second-ranking official. A career diplomat, he has also held numerous other senior positions in government. Ambassador Lê, welcome to Milwaukee and to International Focus.
Thank you for inviting me here.
Well, I'm wondering, for many Americans, unfortunately, when the U.S. military involvement ended, Vietnam sort of slipped off their radar screen. So I'm wondering if you could just give us a brief history of that period from 1973 forward.
Yes, it's good to me have an opportunity to be here to talk to the audience of the studio. You may understand that after the war to 1973, 1975, we reunited our country. And our leaders and people thought that we can do whatever we want to do after the war because we have defeated a number of big guys in the world like Japanese, French, and US, and so on. But it's not happening the way we thought. After the war, our economy was in big trouble. We didn't know which way we should go to boost up the economy and the development of the country. So it took us for 10 years, since 1976 to 1986, to find out the way, where to go, not to fight, not to go into the war, but to fight for the better life of the people, to make the people grow up as other neighboring countries. As a matter of fact, by 1986, our economy was in the brink of collapse. One of the examples I'd like to give you that we were a rice producer. But during that 10 years, we had to import about 1 million tons of rice per year. So by 1986, our leaders and people resolved to find a good way to take the country forward. That's why we embarked on the Đổi mới or renovation policy. It's remarkably that after only 2 years implementing that policy, we started exporting rice. Now we are the third biggest rice exporter in the world, I think after Thailand, the United States, and then Vietnam. Thanks to the good policy and the wholehearted support of the entire people, in the last 22 years, we have made great achievement in the national development, in the economy development, and in the process of integration ourselves to region and to the world. As you have mentioned that in the last 22 years, our average growth rate ranked from 7 point to 8.5%. And it helped a lot to heighten the prestige and the role of Vietnam in the international arena and in the region. We have diplomatic relations with over 182 countries. And we have the trade and economic cooperation with almost 90 countries and territory. And that helped Vietnam in domestic problem. It helped Vietnam in external problem. And I think one of the reasons for the good achievement we got in the last 22 years is the stability of the country. The security and social stability has been highly appreciated, not by the Vietnamese people only, but I think by many other people in the international community. Looking at South Asia, we don't have the problem of separation, of religion problem, like Southern Thailand or the Philippines or Myanmar or other country. And it's good for our people that terrorist activities are not in Vietnam yet. Up to this moment, I don't know, because terrorist activities can happen anywhere and any time they wish to. But by saying that, I want to stress that thanks to the social stability, we can make good step forward in constructing the country, developing the economy. Now we are members of almost big organization in the world. We accessed to WTO at the end of 2006. We became a member of APEC in 1999, and we hosted the first summit of APEC in Hanoi, 2006, which I think one of the most successful summit of APEC history. And it was good that President Bush was there, and he also entered into the bilateral visit on that occasion. We have been elected as member of United Nations Security Council, and we are working with a very responsible sense of a responsible member states of the United Nations. In the last 6 months, we had an excellent cooperation with the United States delegation there on most of the security and stability things, or in other words, peace and war problem of the world. And U.S. delegation always sits next to our delegation, according to alphabet, U.S. and Vietnam. Second thing that we have done many good things for the region and for the world. It's not like in the past when we were fighting for the independence. We fought for the independence. But now what we are going to do, we have to think of the interests of the security and stability in the region. We have to think of how we are going to serve our interest, but we have to care for the others' interests as well. That's why we work hard in the ASEAN organization, work hard in the WTO, UN, APEC, and we are pleased to see that our friends near and far in the world have highly appreciated Vietnam's contribution to the common issues, common problems of the world.
Well, if I could, I'd like to get back to the economic aspect of this that made this possible, and the Doi Moi reforms. What specifically did they involve? How does the economic system now differ from that period between 75 and 86?
The biggest difference is after the war, or during the war and after the war, until 1986, our economy was centralized economy. Every economic activities has been directed by the central government or the local administration, but it must be directed from above. And everything is subsidized. And you may know that during that time we produced less, but we enjoyed the foreign aids most for the war and for the economic development. But the critical time during the 10 years after the war, our allies in the socialist system, the former Soviet Union, most of them collapsed. So we were alone, left alone by all these things. It's too bad and most difficult situation during that time. But it was remarkable or remarkable thing that once you were left alone, you have to find a way to live, to survive. And then we found the good way to live and to develop.
So the Communist Party is still in control of government, as it is, of course, in the mainland China.
Yeah.
How does the current economic system in Vietnam compare to China's, in which there is a sort of blending of two systems, if you will?
China didn't suffer a war, long war like Vietnam. We fought against the French for 9 years, and the 30 years between North and South in which involvement with America. The country, the people and the economy exhausted. China was in peace for a long time, since 1949. So this circumstance situation is different. Now the Communist Party are leading the two countries. But China embarked on the reform since 1976. It means more than 10 years before Vietnam. They made great effort, I think, and the whole world was astonished at the development of China. For Vietnam, the Communist Party is leading the country. Our people are having no complaint about one-party rule because as far as economy developed, as far as society stable, it's good. Whenever the people ask the party to change the leadership, we will do that.
Well, I'm going to stop you right there. We're going to take a break, and then perhaps we can talk a bit about the current situation in Vietnam.
Yeah, I will do.
To our viewers, we'll be back in a moment with more International Focus.
The Institute of World Affairs presents our community with a range of public programs relating to global issues, U.S. foreign policy, and the world economy. For more information about the Institute of World Affairs, call 414-229-3220 or visit our website at www.iwa.uwm.edu.
Welcome back to International Focus. We're talking with Vietnam's ambassador to the U.S. Well, we were talking before the break about the comparison between the Chinese model for development and sort of market reforms and Vietnam's. How has those two experiences compared?
Well, it's a lot of experience and lesson that we have learned from China, because we start from the same mechanism of centralized economy. But China is a huge country, the biggest population in the world. So that we have learned some lessons of what we should change from the centralized economy into the market economy, and how to improve the labor force, how to attract investment and expertise, technologies from the world. But not all the lessons we learn we apply to Vietnam situation because the circumstances, the situation are different. However, the development of China helped Vietnam a lot because there are two sides of coins. The faster development of China affects Vietnam positively and also negatively because we are the next door China. But anyhow, we have learned some experience in living next to China. So I think so far we have successful been selecting the lesson and experience from China development to apply to the Vietnamese development.
Well, and in fact, many of the outside countries, when they're looking at the region for investment, are adopting what's been termed the China plus one policy of not solely concentrating on China, but selecting another market. And Vietnam has benefited from that policy as well as an alternative to China in the market for outside investment, has it not?
Now that is interdependence world. So not only China, but other countries in the region, and even some countries far away from Vietnam, still affects positively on the development of Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. Well, so let's talk a bit about the current state of the Vietnamese economy. And we've heard about these very enviable growth rates and some of the efforts to eliminate poverty in the country. What are the engines driving the Vietnamese economy?
The engine driving the Vietnamese hardworking people and the policy is to take care of the life of the people, to make the country strong and stronger so that it can fulfill its domestic and international obligation. But as you know that in the recent time, since last year, maybe a year before last and now, the situation of economy in the world in trouble. Recession, price rising, particularly on oils and foodstuff, and the financial problem here and there happen. And once we integrate it into this process, we to some extent affected by the recession.
And talk a bit about the economic relations between the U.S. and Vietnam. I mean, where the U.S. stands as a trading partner.
Yeah, so let me continue with that. Our inflation is increased because of the world situation. Because we are a developing country, we gained a huge amount of FDI and investment. That's the money supply is increased, labor force increased, that's why inflation is also increased. But our government has worked out steps to control this problem and solve the problem. And I think so far in the last 2 months, things has been much better compared with the time when 2008 starts. In relation with the U.S., I think the economic and trade investment cooperation has been excellent. U.S. now is the biggest market of Vietnamese export.
And what would some of those exports be?
It's the garment, textile garment, seafood, furniture, and some agriculture products, fruits, and like a coffee. And last year, the volume trade between the two turned out at $12.2 billion US. Among that, we exported to U.S. about over 10 billion. We import less than 2 billion. But the rising of U.S. export to Vietnam is satisfactorily. In the last quarter, the first quarter of 2008, U.S. export to Vietnam increased 164%. So I think it is a good sign. On investment, U.S. is ranked fifth among the foreign investors into Vietnam. But early this year, the investment from U.S. occupied number one compared with other investors. And I'm sure that U.S. business people will very soon occupy number one, or at least among the number one investors in Vietnam. And on the education, science, and technology cooperation, it's also had a good achievement. We have sent a lot of students here now. I'm going around the country to contact installation and universities and colleges so that we can expand the cooperation by two ways: sending Vietnamese to the United States and inviting U.S. university and college and companies to set up the U.S. universities in Vietnam so that more Vietnamese students can attend and can be enjoying the better education.
And what kinds of things would you like to see those students involved in, and where do you see the economy going? Are there sectors and industries towards which you would like to move?
As an economy of over 80 million population, there will be 100 million population by 2020. We aimed at working hard to make Vietnam an industrialized country. And if you want to have the country industrialized, you have to have better labor force, better trained workers, better knowledge of management and high tax. And I think U.S. is one of the partners that we can cooperate, not only on IT or other industry, but the manufacturing industry, IT factory, biotech industry, and let's say most of the things that an economy of medium size like Vietnam need. We want to cooperate with you.
Well, I'd like to turn, if we could, a bit to sort of political relations. And there are people that have said because of Vietnam's unique relationships with some of the other countries in the region that perhaps the U.S. and others don't have particularly warm relations with, you could play a special role. And I'm thinking of, for example, Myanmar and perhaps even North Korea. Talk a little bit about the relationship between Vietnam and those countries?
Yes, but first thing I want to say that we are promoting political and security cooperation with the United States. That's been agreed upon by the President and the leaders of Vietnam. And when I presented my credential to President Bush, he said we had to work together for strengthening the partnership between the U.S. and Vietnam, and our leaders share with that. Relating to the region, I think we had excellent relations with ASEAN because we are a very active member of ASEAN Association. We're working on that as a neighbor of China, neighbor of Laos, Cambodia. We consider these relations are among the priorities in diplomacy of Vietnam. On Myanmar, we respect the principle of ASEAN, that is non-interference in the international affairs of Myanmar. But they have been working hard with ASEAN colleagues, with Myanmar people, to help them to stabilize the situation, to help them to push ahead the democracy process. And I think there's some sign that they had done something. I'm not going to say that they haven't done enough or not, but it's good that they are doing something on that trend. And I hope they will soon be recognized by international community. And relating to the recent cyclone in Myanmar, it is the big loss for Myanmar. My government have sent a certain amount of aid, and we are going to have a meeting among the ASEAN foreign ministers to discuss what the ASEAN going to help and what methods, what steps we are going to do. In Vietnam, we think that we are very experienced in natural calamity settlement after the event happened. We are ready to go to Myanmar to help people there in the area affected by the cyclone.
Well, we've got just under a minute left. I'm wondering if you could just give us very quickly your sense of what you would like to do with your position while you're in Washington.
To be ambassador in Washington to the United States is a big job. I'm honored, and I felt I have a responsibility to that. What I'm going to do is, politically, I have to work with the U.S. to push or maintain the momentum and push ahead the development of bilateral relations. Secondly, I have to concentrate on economic, trade, investment cooperation. Thirdly, I'll work hard for the better cooperation on educational, scientific, and technological cooperation between the two.
Well, I certainly want to thank you on behalf of our viewers for taking time to join us here on International Focus. And to our viewers, we'll see you next week on International Focus.
For information about the Institute of World Affairs and its many programs, or to become a member of the Institute, call 414-229-3220 or visit us at our website,